Hello ducklings, welcome back to my channel, and today we'll be reviewing the Ohuhu new Brush Pastel set. So as you can see, they included two little swatch cards and a piece of plastic to put between your pages. They used to have a piece of plastic that was really rigid and kind of useless, but now it's nice and flexible. So here's a little selection of the colors, a little sneak preview, and let's get to swatching. So I apologize if this is upsetting for any of you, but I swatched very out of order because I did not want to go through and put them in order before I started. So sorry if that aggravates you. You can skip ahead. I'll put the timestamp on the screen to when I am done with the swatches. But yeah, so one of the long-running complaints about the Ohuhu marker sets ever since they started making the brush tip sets, and also when they changed their formula a couple years ago, I want to say it was 2017, was that the set was really all midtones and dark tones. There weren't really any pastels. Their original sets had them, but when they switched to a different formula for their markers, they changed their color swatches, and there just really weren't any light tones. So a lot of people have complained about this in reviews. I mentioned it in my original 72 set review, because at that point, that was still a problem. And even their 120 set doesn't have a large range of lighter tones, which I do have. So this is a really nice little supplement set. There is not any crossover between this set and any of the others as far as I'm aware. So these are all totally new colors. I believe they have like 215 or so unique colors now. I didn't add it up. That's just a rough estimate based on the sets I have bought. And that puts them within striking distance of Copic's color library, which is pretty cool. Though of course Ohuhu does not sell refills, and the tips are not replaceable, though you can flip them over to get a fresh side to it. So that's pretty nice. I find my Ohuhu tips last about as long as my Copic tips. By the time the tips are no longer usable, the marker has usually run out of ink anyway. So today we're going to be drawing Liara from Mass Effect. I was actually recently featured on the official Mass Effect Twitter with some art of Tali Zora, and I got inspired to work on a Liara as a result of the success that post had. Plus, this set has a lot of really nice light blues, so I thought this would be the perfect candidate for testing out this set. So this is not the first thing I have colored with the brush pastel tips. As I've mentioned in my last video, I try not to do first impressions, and I also have extensive experience with Ohuhu markers. I have been using them for many years, and I have bought, I think, every set that they put out for these brush tip markers. So the pros and cons. Obviously they're very affordable. The brush tips being reversible is a really nice touch. I do find that I get very frustrated now, more than I used to, when I run out of ink in an Ohuhu marker, because in the past, when they were, you know, a more limited color range and when the tips were bullet, I didn't really care if I ran out of an Ohuhu marker, but now that they're so much nicer, I'm like, no, I want to keep using this. I run out of blue-grays all the time, it turns out. And unfortunately, while Ohuhu does actually sell some of their markers open stock now, they're usually out of stock, and it's only a very selected range of colors where they happen to know that the ink runs out faster. So the blue grays are not included in those, and for that reason, later in this video, I'm going to pull out a set of blue grays that I bought to supplement my Ohuhus from Art & Fly, and this isn't really a review on them. I'll probably do a full review on Art & Fly at a later date, but I just wanted to give y'all a heads up that those are coming. So yeah, those are, you know, some pros and cons about the markers. The quality of Ohuhu markers is very good. It has gone up a lot over the years since I started using them back when they only had bullet nibs and when they were a private label company. And what private labeling is when a company just buys a product from a manufacturer and sticks their brand on it. Most marker brands on Amazon, for example, seem to be private labeled. They all use very similar or the same color systems. The marker bodies are different, but usually the color range and selection is okay. Like, you can get basically the original Ohuhu sets under the brand Artex or other various brands. So at this point, I believe Ohuhu either has an exclusive contract or is making the markers themselves, because I have not been able to find anything comparable by another marker vendor, either on Amazon or Alibaba or AliExpress, which is how I figured out the private labeling stuff in the first place. I tried a lot of markers over the years from cheap Amazon brands and AliExpress brands, and you can buy them totally unbranded on AliExpress and Alibaba, or buy them wholesale, and I'm like, oh, these are all just the same markers with different labels slapped on them. but Ohuhu's brush nib markers in particular, I haven't been able to find anything similar to, so they must have a pretty good exclusivity contract at this point with someone, or they're just producing them in their own facilities. I don't know what their manufacturing looks like. So as far as getting cheap markers on Amazon or on Ohuhu's website directly, I definitely recommend sticking with just one brand. Don't get sucked into the trap like I did of buying every cheap marker brand that you see reviewed on YouTube, because most of them are exactly the same markers. And on the flip side of that, I do recommend Ohuhu's because they are actually offering a product that not a lot of their competitors are, which is very affordable and high quality brush nib markers. It's hard to do because I've used a lot of brush nib markers in the budget section at this point. Like, I also have a pretty decent selection of Copics and other more expensive brands, but as far as the budget ones go, Ohuhu blows all of their competitors out of the water in terms of how long the ink lasts and how long the brush tip lasts. Though, I will say, if you cannot order things online and you are looking for a good starter set of brush tip markers, the Artist's Loft brand at Michael's used to be really bad, and now they're pretty good, actually. The color range is more limited, but if you don't have access to ordering online, then that is a good alternative for you. If you're not in the US, I don't know if you have Michael's, and I am very sorry, I do not have recommendations. Anyway. So yeah, I do really like this set. It's got a good little range of grays too, to supplement the ones that are missing from the 120 set. So I've really enjoyed using that so far. I didn't really get into the oranges and yellows in this one, or the greens. There are some greens in here that are absolutely gorgeous, like subtle pastel colors. And I usually don't like the color green, but these ones impressed me. So maybe I'll try to do some like little landscape studies at some point with those. So yeah, basically, I liked them. If you like alcohol markers or don't know if you like alcohol markers, Ohuhu is a good place to start. And if they ever start offering refills, which I don't expect they will, they'd be unstoppable. So here, we're going to be switching over to these Art and Fly markers. Art and Fly is also a brand I have been using for a long time. I believe Drawing with Waffles reviewed both of these brands way back in the day, and that's how I ended up with them. And I bought this set recently because my blue grays and my Ohuhus died, and their grayscale set, which is a newly updated one of 12 markers, has the same blue grays. Or at the very least comparable blue grays. I don't think they use the same ink or the same, manufacturers, but obviously I have no way of knowing that. But yeah, I wanted to get some darker gray tones in here because Liara has those, and I kind of, when I picked out Liara for this video, underestimated how dark I would need to go. So yeah, I figured we could do a little mini review of these. Art and Fly's quality has always been very good. They're a very consistent brand. I'll do a full review of this set and their skin tone set in a future video. At this point, all of my original Art and Flies that I bought years ago have died, or I just have stopped using them and they've been sitting so long that they've expired, because art supplies expire. Something to keep in mind. They don't usually have an expiration date on them, but over time they do degrade. The only downside to Art and Fly markers for me was always the color selection, and they've added a bunch more recently, so that's really cool. Oh, and then the other minor downside is that the printing on the caps on the old markers would fade off really quickly, and so I wouldn't know which marker was which, and the caps and the marker themselves are vastly different colors, and that's true of almost any brand, but that's why it's so important to have a labeling on there that stays, and Art and Fly is not especially good at that, but I don't know, maybe the new ones will be better. When I opened these ones up, they were in good condition. Some of the tips had a little bit of like granulation on them, I think because they'd been sitting in a warehouse for a while, but I was able to scrape that off with the cap very easily, and they performed just as well as all of the other markers in the set. So yeah, I also recommend Art and Fly, and they're doing a cool thing now where they don't sell sets with overlapping colors anymore. So say you wanted to buy, for Ohuhu for example, if you buy both their 72 set and then you later bought their 120 set, you're gonna get a lot of the same markers. They basically just do, or used to do, bigger sets of the same kind of color themes. They didn't do like booster packs like this pastel set, which is why I'm happy to see that they added this and their skin tone set as kind of booster packs to their core color selection. Art and Fly is following suit, or they may have started it honestly. I don't know. I kind of lost track of what they were doing for a few years. But they have added a 48 color booster set in addition to their main set of 48 markers, of which I liked the color range. It just was only 48 markers. I was like, well, where do I go from there? And now they have these 12 sets of grayscale and skin tone markers, and they have sets of 6 of other colors, though I think those are now included in the main sets. So yeah, they're starting to expand their color range, and you can also buy refills from Art and Fly and new tips. So something I actually used to do is I would buy Art and Fly tips and I would put them in my Ohuhu bullet tip markers. Not all markers have interchangeable nibs, but Art and Fly happens to fit into the chisel side of at least the old Ohuhu markers. I haven't tried this recently. They also fit into Michael's markers, and I believe the Copic tips will also fit into those. So I do a lot of retrofitting on markers where like I like a color that a certain brand has and I can't find it elsewhere. Like E17 in the Artist Loft brand Praline is unlike any other color that I have been able to find, and I use it for a very specific skin tone that I like to mix. So I just buy those markers 3 or 4 at a time, and then I replace the tips with an Art and Fly one, and then as it runs out of ink, I take the Art and Fly tip out of that marker and I put it into the next one. So yeah, just a little tip, if you ever have a color that you really want from a marker that has a really crummy tip, is it may be interchangeable. And I find that Copic and Art and Fly's tips are very comparable in quality. I actually like a lot of my Art and Fly tips better than my Copic tips. I've had some issues with my Copic tips recently. Copics are kind of overrated and I don't love them. Even after refilling them, I never feel like my marker is back to where it was when it was new. So I've started moving away from Copic a lot, as you can see with like, hey, here's Ohuhu, here's Art and Fly, here's other brands. And I'll also do some reviews on this channel of more expensive brands. Art and Fly is more expensive than Ohuhu per marker, but because the markers have such interchangeable tips and you can order any color of the marker again, that is worth it in my opinion. And yeah, they're just 2 really solid budget brands, and I like supporting small business, so I especially like Art and Fly. And there goes my cat Haku. I have 4 cats, so you'll probably see more of them as the channel goes forward because they don't have any sense of personal space because they are cats. Anyway, that concludes the Art and Fly interlude. Back to the Ohuhu markers, though I think I switched back and forth in there a few times. So what I'm doing right now is adding a little biotic cloud around Liara. In the Mass Effect games, if you haven't played them, biotics are space magic. It's space magic. There's not even really a intense sci-fi explanation for it, or maybe there is in the codex, but I don't read the codex. Yeah, and she glows blue and she can move stuff with her mind, or like flay stuff with her mind, or make shields, you know, standard blue magic stuff. And yeah, that was pretty quick and easy to do. So now we're gonna move on to my colored pencil layer. This is also not a review, but these are Tombow Irojiten pencils. They are a, I believe, wax-based pencil, as opposed to Prismacolor and Faber-Castell, which are oil-based, which I also bring some of those in here. I like using wax-based pencils when I want a finer line because they are a harder lead and you can sharpen them to a finer point. And they also don't smudge like occasionally an oil-based pencil will. The flip side of that is that they are trickier to blend than an oil-based pencil, but obviously since I'm basically using these for line art, I don't really need them to. So yeah, I really like using pencils over alcohol markers, over watercolor, over everything to get that last layer looking crisp without having to use line art because I am generally afraid of inking my drawings. I'm not afraid of it, that's not the right word. I'm just not very good at it, and I don't think it adds anything to my work to add a hard line to it. It's a skill I am working on, and I am trying to get less afraid of making hard line decisions. Another fun thing about pencils is you can go lighter on them over a darker color. This is easier to do with an oil-based pencil like a Prismacolor or a Faber-Castell, so that's what I'm using to do it here. But yeah, you can add some fun little lighting details that way, or you can fix mistakes like I do all the time. If your marker went outside the lines and using the colorless blender couldn't get it out of the paper, go over it with a white colored pencil. You won't be able to see it by the end, probably. So yeah, now I'm just adding more little magic details. The drawing's pretty much finished at this point, so I guess I should give like my final thoughts on Ohuhu markers. They were good and I liked them. This concludes my book report. I think I've made that joke before on this channel, so call me out in the comments. But yeah, I recommend this brand. I would say if you are wanting to get like the most out of your Ohuhu experience, buy the pastels, buy the skin tones, and buy their smallest set of colors. I think is a 48 set, or get the 72 set, which has a little bit more in there if you need a lot of mid-tones and darker tones. And then you'll be pretty much good to go for at least a while on your markers. In the future, I'll probably do some more high-end marker reviews. I've been really enjoying using Neopico markers lately, deleter markers. They're a Japanese brand like Copic, but they seem to not have ever made it out of Japan, really, in terms of cultural awareness. So I might do a review of those later. Let me know if that is something y'all would be interested in doing. Or watching, I guess. You guys aren't doing it. This is my channel. Get out of here. Get what are you doing in my studio? This joke is nothing. Anyway, what, we got 15 seconds left on the video? What else can I goof about? Here's Liara, everyone's favorite blue space waifu. And we're done. This will be available as a print in my store, or if you ever see me at conventions when places exist again. And thank you so much for coming to my TED Talk.